You might have heard about gravitational force. It is one of the most common force, and of course you know it that Isaac Newton, there is a very famous story that Isaac Newton was sitting under an apple tree, an apple fell over him and he discovered the gravitational force. Now, whatever the story be, but then we have got some other fundamental forces in nature. There are certain forces in nature which are existing already. Do you know about them? That what are the names of these fundamental forces? Do you know that which one is the strongest force out of it and which one is the weakest force out of the four fundamental forces? So in this lecture, we are going to talk about the fundamental forces of the nature. We are discussing science and technology book, and in the previous sessions, we have discussed over some chapters of it. Okay. So in today's session, we are going to talk about a very important part of physics, that is the fundamental forces of nature. Okay. I am Kinsuk Parasar and you can follow me on my Telegram group, on this Telegram group. Okay. So let's see. In today's session, we are going to talk about chapter 11 of the science and technology book, that is fundamental forces of nature. Okay. What we are going to see? Basically, we are going to talk about what are the fundamental forces of nature, and we are going to see the applications of some of them. We are also going to understand which one is the weakest force and which one is the strongest force out of these fundamental forces. Okay. So see, if we talk about the four fundamental forces, we have got, first of all, we have our gravitational force. Okay. Then the second major force is electromagnetic force. First, we have our gravitational force. That is the first one, gravitational force. Then we have the second one, that is electromagnetic force. Electromagnetic force. The third important force that we are having is strong nuclear force, and the weak nuclear force. Okay. But see, there is one thing which you have to keep in mind. Weak nuclear force doesn't mean it is the weakest force in nature. No, weak nuclear force is not the weakest force in nature. So let us see. One by one, let us first talk about the gravitational force. As you know, the gravitational force is also called as the force of attraction. It is something which is also called as the force of attraction. You have heard about this story that when Newton was sitting under the apple tree, an apple fell over him and he discovered the gravitational force. Now, this is called as a force of attraction. The question is, why this is existing? How does this force come into picture? What is the factor behind it? The factor behind this is the mass of the object. It is considered that the gravitational force exists due to the virtue of mass existing between the particles. The particles which are there, you know that if we define the matter, you know that defining a matter is very easy. Anything which occupies some volume and have some mass is called matter. So basically, even if there are any such particle, the small particles or large particles, they are going to have some mass, and due to that mass, they will have some gravitational force. It may be very less, it may be negligible, but there will be some gravitational force. So if any object is consisting of some mass, it means it is going to have some gravitational force. Okay. Now, see, this gravitational force, it is the one force which is considered as the weakest force in our nature. It is considered as the weakest force in the nature. Yes, it is true. The one force which is binding the entire universe together, the one which is binding all the planets, the stars, the galaxies, the entire universe, this one force is considered as the weakest force in our nature. Out of the four fundamental forces, this one is the weakest force. Now, if you want to understand gravity or gravitational force, you can understand it in these terms also. Okay, these lines, they are representing the space-time fabric. They are representing the space-time fabric, and here a heavy object, like let us say our Earth, has created a bend in that space-time fabric, a depression in that space-time fabric, and due to that, you can see the moon and the other things which they are there, it will get attracted towards the Earth. Now think about this, it has created a bend or a depression in the space-time fabric, and due to which the nearby objects are getting attracted towards it. Okay. So this is what is considered as gravitational force in the modern times also. Okay. Now, if we talk about its application, you can see here, if we talk about one fundamental application of gravitational force which we see in our day-to-day life is the formation of tides in the oceans. Okay. You might see that we have got two high tides and two low tides in one day. So how this high tide or low tide is forming? It is caused due to the attraction, the gravitational force. It is caused due to that force of gravitation which is exerted over the water in the oceans by moon. Okay. So here moon is responsible for formation of tides in our oceans. Okay. Sun has some role also, but sun is very, very far away from our Earth. Okay. So for that very thing, moon has a greater impact in the formation of tides in our oceans. Okay. Now we have got two high tides and two low tides in one day. In this graphic, you can see that how these tides are getting formed. Okay, how these tides are getting formed according to the different intervals. You can see the rise in the level of water or the fall in the level of water. The rise is indicating the high tide, and the depth, or you can say that the depression in the water is indicating, the fall in the water is indicating the low tide. Okay. You can see at two times of day we are having high tide, and then we are also having two low tides. So that is one of the common application of gravitation. On the other hand, you can see this is representing our solar system. You know that the planets which are there, they are revolving around the sun. Now consider about it. Consider it like the sun, which is responsible for nearly 99% of the mass of solar system. It is at the center of it. It has created a depression in the space-time fabric, and the different planets which are there, they are just revolving around it. They are under the force of gravity exerted by the sun. They are trying to move towards it. Okay. So this is one of the very common example of the application of gravitational force in our day-to-day life. You know of various examples. The way, like, you know that all the things which, if we are throwing something upward, it will come down. Why it is coming up down? Why it is coming down? It is just because of force of gravitation exerted by the surface of Earth or by the Earth. Now, can you tell me, if you are weighing, just tell me this in comment box, if you are weighing around 60 kg on the surface of Earth, what would be your mass? What would your weight? What would be your weight on the surface of moon? If your weight on the surface of Earth is 60 kg, what would be your weight on the surface of moon? Now, this is a question for you, and I'm waiting for your answers. Okay. Now, see, the second very important force is electromagnetic force. Electromagnetic force is existing due to the charges which are present on the body. Okay. The charges which are present on the body, they are causing the electromagnetic force. Okay. Here you can see we have two things combined together, electroforce or electric force and magnetic force. Now, keep one thing in mind, both of them, they are caused somehow due to the charges on the electrons. Okay. The charges over the electrons, they are responsible for this. Okay. Or the spin of electrons, they are responsible for even the magnetic forces which are there. Okay. So the charged objects are having some electric field also and magnetic field also. In class 10th or class 12th, you might have seen if the electricity is going on, if the current is passing on and it is increasing or decreasing, then there is a deflection in the magnetic compass also. Or if the magnetic field is changing, then there can be induction of electricity as well. Now, this is a common concept which you have read in class 9th, 10th. Okay. So now we have the electromagnetic force. It is the force of attraction between the charged particles. And this is considered as the strongest. This is considered as the strongest, second strongest force in the nature. Okay. This is considered as the second strongest force in nature. Okay. Gravitational was the weakest force, but this is considered as the second strongest force in nature. Okay. Now, one more thing. You can see on this side we have an atom, and in atom we have protons and electrons. Okay. We have this protons and electrons. Okay. Now these protons and electrons are bound together in an atom. Now, how this is possible? It is again possible due to electromagnetic force acting between them. So the existence of atom with all those electrons and protons, it is possible because of the electromagnetic force. It is holding them together. So the atoms which we see around us, the atoms with which the entire matter is made, it is possible because of the electromagnetic force. Now we are coming to one more fundamental force in nature, and that is our strong nuclear force. Now you know that the electromagnetic force is responsible for holding together protons and neutrons. The strong nuclear force is at the core of it. It is responsible for holding the protons and neutrons together. Okay. It is responsible for the formation of the entire nucleus. Okay. The entire nucleus, it is existing as one thing because of this strong nuclear force. Okay. So it is performing one more task. I will come to that. But at the first of it, at the core of it, this strong nuclear force is what is enabling the existence of particles. The particles are existing as one unit because of this strong nuclear force. It is at the base of generation or existence of the particles. It is what is responsible for the existence of the particles in our entire universe. Okay. Now, it is performing one more very important task. It is also responsible for formation of protons and neutrons. Now, you might be wondering how these protons and neutrons are made. Basically, if we look at subatomic particles, protons and neutrons are made up of quarks. Okay. Quarks are very fundamental subatomic particles having different flavors. Okay. And these different flavors have been named as up, down, top, bottom, charm, strange. Okay. So there are 6 different flavors of the quarks, having means different orientation of the quarks, and a proton or a neutron is made up of quarks. If 2 up quark and 1 down quark is there, it leads to formation of our if suppose 2 up quarks and 1 down quark is there, it leads to formation of our protons. Okay. And if 1 up quark and 2 down quarks are there, it leads to formation of our neutron. Okay. So basically neutrons and protons are made up of quarks. Okay. And these quarks are held together with the help of our strong nuclear force. Okay. So the strong nuclear force is not just holding together the nucleus only, it is also holding together the protons and neutrons. It is responsible for the formation of protons and neutrons. You might have wondered that if we talk about any such atom, we can see that in case of atoms, we have protons, we have all the protons clumped together in a single small nucleus. Now, these are positively charged particles, so they should be repelling each other. They should be going out. But how they are able to remain in that confined state? It is possible because of the strong nuclear force. It is the strongest force in our nature. This is the strongest force in the nature. Okay, and that's why it is able to counter the electromagnetic force. In case of electromagnetic force, you have to understand the positive charges will repel each other. Positive means like charges will repel each other and unlike charges will attract each other. So within the nucleus, we have only protons, protons and protons. They should be repelling each other. But their repelment, that tendency to repel each other, is being countered by the strong nuclear force, which is the strongest force in nature. So when we say that the atom is existing, we have to also understand there is a nucleus which is existing there. And that nucleus is existing because of the strong nuclear force. Okay. So first role, holding the nucleus together. The second major important role, it is even holding the protons and neutrons together. It is holding the quarks which is making up these protons and neutrons. So that is the second thing. Now, what about the next force, that is weak nuclear force? It is again related to the subatomic particles, which is protons and neutrons only. Now, this weak nuclear force is regarded as a force which leads to conversion of a proton into a neutron or vice versa, means a neutron into a proton. We have just seen that a proton is made up of 2 up quarks and 1 down quark, and a neutron is made up of 1 down quark and 2 up quarks. Okay. So in case of protons, we have 2 up and 1 down. Okay. In case of neutron, we have 1 up and 2 down. Okay. So this, if we look at this weak nuclear force, what it does, it changes the orientation of the quarks. It is not breaking them. It is just changing the orientation of the quarks, and due to which it is able to convert a proton into neutron or a neutron into proton. Okay, like see, here we have this proton. Here we have got 2 up quarks. Now it has converted into, weak force can convert this into a neutron where we have 2 down quarks and 1 up quark. This can be reversed also. Okay. So basically, the weak nuclear force, okay, it is not the weakest nuclear force. Okay. It is the third strongest force in nature, and this is responsible for conversion of a proton into neutron or vice versa. Okay. So these are our 4 fundamental forces of nature. Okay. Now, if we compare them, what is the relative strength, you can see gravity, it is the weakest force. Its relative strength has been calculated here. If suppose that strong force has a magnitude of 1, then electromagnetic force will be around 100 times smaller than that. Okay. And then if we talk about the weak nuclear force, it will be 10 to the power minus 13 times. Okay. Means these many times weaker than the strong force. And if we compare the gravity, it is 10 to the power minus 38. So it is that much smaller in comparison to strong nuclear force. It is, you can see, even if you compare it with electromagnetic force or weak nuclear force, it is still very much small. But you have to understand one more thing here. What is the range of them? Now, in 2 cases, we can see, in case of gravity and in case of electromagnetic force, the range is infinite. In case of gravity, the range is infinite. In case of electromagnetic force also, it is infinite. Okay. But if we talk about a strong nuclear force, it operates in a region of 10 to the power minus 15 meter, and the weak nuclear force 10 to the power minus 18 meter. Okay, so they have a very limited range. They operate at the subatomic particle level. They operate at a very nano scale. Okay, even lower than that, even smaller than that. Okay, so they operate at very minuscule scale, whereas gravity and electromagnetic force, they operate at a large scale. They operate at infinity level. Okay, so they are the four fundamental forces of nature which is existing around us. I hope you have liked this video. You have got some information about the fundamental forces. Do like the video and share it with your friends, and we will be discussing more such topics of science and technology. Do answer me about the question with, if your weight is 60 kg on the surface of Earth, what would be your weight on the surface of Moon? I am waiting for your comments. Thank you very much. All the best.